this video, I will be teaching lesson 16.4. This is the last lesson on depreciation. We'll be covering the units of production method and then partial year depreciation. So in your handouts that are on the podium, if you have not gotten those yet, it's probably a good time to get those right now. We are going to look at lesson 16.4. We're using something called units of production method. Instead of us trying to calculate by percentages or by fractions, what this unit of production method means is we can deduct depreciation by the amount of use of the production or the usage of an item. So for instance, if it was a generator and it had a life of 5,000 hours, we could tell the worth of it based on the amount of use that it's received so far. So let's jump right into this. Our first example here, we have a stump chipper. It costs $15,000. It has 700 hours of life, and it has a salvage value of $3,000. The first step we're going to take is to find out what is the total amount of depreciation that can come away from the stump chipper. So we take our cost minus our salvage value, and we get $12,000. Then from here, we can start using our formula. Depreciable amount divided by units of life equals the depreciation per unit. So we would take the depreciation of $12,000 divided by 700 hours of life, and we'd figure out that for every hour that this stump chipper is used, it's going to depreciate $17.14. So pretty simple on how this works. Let's keep going. Example 1. We have a truck. It costs $115,000. Life is 500,000 miles. Salvage value is 25,000 miles, or $25,000. Excuse me. For step 1, we need to find the depreciable amount. So we take our cost minus salvage, and we have $90,000. Step 2, we now can take the depreciable amount divided by the units of life, or miles of life, and we would find out for every mile that is used on this truck, it is depreciating 18 cents. So in this example, it is asking what would be the total amount of depreciation if we used 128,000 miles. That should not be dollars, that should be miles. So we already found out what it costs per mile. We take 128,000 times 18 cents, and we would know that it depreciates $23,040. Example 2. In this next one, we have a shrink wrapping machine. The cost $52,300. The life of it is 690,000 units, and the salvage value is 4,000 years. What they're wanting to know is what would be the value or book value of this shrink wrapping machine after year 1 if we use this amount, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, and then wants to know us to find these different parts. So step 1, find the depreciable amount. We take our cost minus salvage, and we would get $48,300. Then from here, we're going to use our formula, our depreciable amount divided by the units of life, and we would find out for every unit that is being used, it costs 7 cents. Step 3. Now let's find how much this shrink wrapping machine would be worth or would depreciate after the units of life. So we simply take the amount that they're asking for, 240,000, times our depreciation per unit, and we would find out year 1, this is how much it depreciate. Year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5. So all we're doing is taking the amounts they're asking for, multiplying it by the amount per unit, which we found here, and these would be the total amount, it would depreciate. Now, if we were to put this into a depreciation schedule, this is what it would look like. We would take the different amount of units, we would multiply them by our depreciation per unit, and then we could figure out the rest. So 16,800, same answer we got here. Accumulated depreciation, same thing there. book value, we take the $52,300 by $16,800. That is my daughter's toy that I accidentally kicked. So excuse me for the Christmas music. Year 2. Oh my goodness. Year 2. We would take the 150,000 units times the 7 cents, and we would get $10,500. In the accumulated depreciation, we would add the 16,800 plus the 10,500, and we would get 27,300. So then we would take this amount minus the book value, and we would get this. Okay? We've done this now over 3 lessons. We should have a basic idea on how that works on the rest of these numbers. Now, so we could have called this part 1 of the lesson, units of production method. Now what we're doing in part 2 is we're using something called partial year depreciation. Now we automatically assumed in this lesson that, or in the past couple lessons, that the depreciation was purchased at the beginning of the year in January, and the depreciation we were taking away from a full year. Well, that's just not the case. For these examples here, we're using something called a partial year depreciation. We're going to be using the straight line method, the double declining, and the sum of the units. So let's go ahead and jump into example 3. In this example, we have a mountain bike of $6,750. We have a length of 5 years and a salvage value of $750. It was purchased on October 1st. So, what we need to find out first, as we done in lesson 16.1, is how much would it depreciate each year. So we take our cost minus our salvage value divided by our life, and we would get $1,200. So if we bought this in January and went from year to year, we would know exactly how much it depreciates for each year. But now in this question, it's saying that it was purchased on October 1st. So that means we have 3 months remaining in this year. So October, November, December. So what we do is simply put it into a fraction, 3/12, 3 out of 12 months, reduce it, which turns into 1/4. 1/4 times $1,200. And so for our bike that we purchased, it would only depreciate $300 for the remaining 3 months of the year. Now, for the other side of it, if we were to go to, if we were to go to the end of the 5 years, on that last year, it would only depreciate $900. So that's what that 900 is representing. So, okay, what we did again here is we found out how much it depreciates in a year. We figured out that on October 1st it was purchased. There's 3 months remaining. We had to figure out what is the amount of depreciation for the end of the year that was purchased. We turned that into a fraction, 3 out of 12 months. Reduced it, we got $300. Example 4. This one we're using the double declining balance method. We have a boat dock of $72,000, a life of 10 years, and it was installed on April 12th. The first thing we need to do, as we did in lesson 16.2, is what would be the rate that we would use to find depreciation. So, lesson 16.1, if we were given 10 years, we would put 1 over 10, and we would turn that to a decimal, which would be 0.1, and then we'd have 10%. Now, double declining again is the same method. 1/10 times 2, 2/10, which would then give us 1/5, which we convert into a decimal into percent, and we get 20%. So now that we have our rates, we are now ready to find the amount of depreciation. So for the first year, we would take our cost times our rate, and we would find out that it would depreciate 14,400 years. Now, it was purchased in April, so that means we have 9 months remaining of this year of depreciation. So all we do is take the 14,400 times 3/4, which would mean 9 out of the 12 months, reduced to 3/4, and it would depreciate $10,800. So they're asking for two things here. First thing they're asking for is what would be the book value at the end of this year. So if it was brand new $72,000, we subtracted from our partial year depreciation, and at the end of the first year, it would be $61,200. The second part of this question, they're asking what would be the amount of depreciation after a full year of depreciation. So this first year was just partial. The second one would be a full entire year. So we would take the book value at the end of the first partial year, which would be the $61,200. We'd multiply this by our 20% rate, and we would find out that it would depreciate $12,240 at the end of that first full year of depreciation. Okay, so recap real quick. We found our rate, we found the amount of depreciation, we realized it was purchased in April 12th, so that gives us 9 months left. We took our depreciation from year 1 times 3/4, and we got $10,800. Again, this is based on 9 months remaining in the year, and that's where we got this amount here. And then for the first full year, we took our $61,200 at the end of our first partial year times our rate, and we got $12,240. All right, last one. We are now using the sum of the digits method using the partial year depreciation. In this one, we have a cost of $3,800, purchased July 1st, 4 years of life, salvage value is $600. Just as we look at yesterday, when we found our fraction, we need to find our denominator that we'll be using throughout the process. So we use this formula here. Number plus 1 divided by 2. So 4 years is the number, plus 1. So we get 4 times 5 is 20, divided by 2 would be 10. So there is going to be our denominator. Next part we need to do is what is the total amount of depreciation that can take place over this 4-year period. We would take the cost minus the salvage value, and we would get $3,200. Now it's time to start figuring out what would be the depreciation after each year. So it was purchased in July 1st, so that means we have a remaining 6 months throughout the year. So at the beginning of this timeline, if this represents January and this represents December at the end, we'd have July right in the middle. So what we do, as we did already in lesson 16.3, we would take our 4/10. 4 again is coming from the year of life. 10 is coming from the sum of the digits denominator. We would take that amount times our depreciation of $3,200, and we would get $1,280. Now, since it was purchased in the middle of the year, in July 1st, we can only count depreciation for 6 months. So what we would do is take our $1,280 and we would multiply it by 6/12 or reduce down to 1/2. So we would take 1/2 times 1,280 and we would get $640. So our timeline here, we purchased it July 1st, $640 it would depreciate for the end of this first year. Then we would take that $640 for the second half and put it towards the next part of the year, the first 6 months. So year 2, we would take 3/10 times the amount of depreciation, and it would depreciate $960. Now, since we already know the depreciation for the first half of the year, now we need to figure out how much it would depreciate for the second half. So we would take 1/2 times the 960, and we would get 480. Now, how much would it depreciate after the first full year? This was the first partial year. This would be the first year. We would find out by adding the 640 for the first 6 months and the 480 for the second months, it'd be $1,120. Year 3, 2/10 for year 3 times depreciation, we get 640. We already have 480 for the first part of the month, which came from year 2, 480 divided, or 960 divided by 2. We do the same thing again, 640 times 1/2, we get 320 remaining. And now we add those together, $800 to depreciate for that year. Almost done. Year 4, 1 out of 10. We would find that the total amount of depreciation would be 320, but since again we already know the first half, we just need to find out the second half. 1/2 times 320 would be 160. And so our depreciation for the end of year 4 would end up being 480. Now year 5, we don't calculate anything because we already know that it's only going to depreciate $160 for the first 6 months. Because if we go past that, it means we've gone past the years of life. So again, it was purchased in July. We had to calculate only half of the year and then take that other half, 6 months, and put it towards the next year. And that's how we calculate all the way through. So this is the units of production method in the partial year depreciation. We will be grading this in class on Wednesday. If there's any questions, please try to email me tomorrow. Today is Monday right now. So Tuesday throughout your day, if you have questions, please try to email me. We will try to knock off any questions that are right away on Wednesday, and we will take this chapter 16 test on Wednesday as well. So please have lesson 16.2, lesson 16.3, and lesson 16.4 ready to go for Wednesday, and the plan is to grade these in class as well. If there's any additional questions, please let me know. Again, the handout is on the podium, and these sample problems are on the board. I just don't have the answer key for those on there. And between this video and that, I really strongly believe we'll all be able to figure this out. If you have any questions, let me know.